The rain beat steadily against the windshield of Derek Langston's rented Ford pickup as he turned into the parking lot of Sunrise Diner No. 28. The truck fit his disguise. Faded jeans, a flannel shirt, and a worn cap pulled low over a graying beard. Perfect camouflage. No one would suspect the CEO of Sunrise Restaurant Group had just arrived at one of his own locations. He checked his watch. 7:30 a.m. peak breakfast rush. The ideal time to see the operation in full swing. On paper, this diner was profitable. His regional manager, Stan, praised it as one of the district's top performers. But the numbers didn't tell the whole story. Turnover here was 3 times higher than average. Customer reviews hinted at tension among the staff, and employee satisfaction reports were abysmal. Stan brushed it off as growing pains. Derek wasn't buying it. He promoted Doug Henderson, the branch manager, 3 years earlier for a supposedly stellar record. But Derek had learned long ago that metrics could lie. So today he was here not as Derek Langston, CEO, but as Walt Simmons, a retired trucker passing through to visit his daughter. The diner's neon sign flickered in the rain, the S in Sunrise barely glowing. Inside, a warm mix of coffee, bacon, and pancakes greeted him. He paused, scanning the floor. The tile was mostly clean, but the corners hadn't been swept in days. The Employee of the Month board still displayed August winter, though it was mid-October. Small details, but they spoke volumes. Just one today, a young hostess asked with a forced smile. Her name tag read Amber. The missing Sunrise pin on her uniform was another small but telling oversight. Yes, ma'am. Derek replied in a mild southern drawl. Just passing through. Amber led him to a booth near the kitchen. Excellent view of the floor. She slapped a laminated menu on the table and mumbled, "Serve will be right with you." No greeting, no warmth. Strike one. 3 servers worked the floor. 2 young men in crisp uniforms lingered near the coffee station, laughing as they took turns balancing only a few tables. The third, Cassie, was a whirlwind. She carried 3 plates on one arm, coffee pot in the other, moving with efficient grace. Her uniform was clean but threadbare, the logo slightly frayed. She approached his table with a quick, practiced smile. "Good morning. Sorry for the wait. Coffee to start." "Yes, please." "Black as night," Derek said. As she poured, he noticed a faint tremor in her hands. Not from nerves, but exhaustion. She'd probably been on shift since dawn, maybe earlier. "Our special's a trucker's delight," she added, brightening a little. 3 eggs, bacon, sausage, hash browns, and pancakes. Enough fuel for 300 miles. He chuckled. Perfect. Eggs over medium. Cassie smiled. "Coming right up. Been on the road long?" "Just retired," Derek answered. 40 years behind the wheel. Now I'm seeing the country without a deadline. Something in her expression softened. "That sounds amazing. Freedom after all that time." There was a wistful catch in her voice. As she hurried off, Derek observed the rhythm of the diner. Cassie handled nearly every busy table, while the 2 male servers dawdled. When a family with kids came in, the hostess directed them to Cassie's section, though the other sections were half empty. Through the kitchen window, Derek spotted Doug Henderson. He looked thinner than in his corporate headshot, eyes sharper, movements controlling. He leaned toward one of the young servers, Ryan by his tag, and both laughed while glancing toward Cassie. The air in Derek's chest turned cold. Something here wasn't just inefficient. It was toxic. Cassie returned with his breakfast. Cooked to company standards, plated perfectly. "Busy morning for you," Derek said casually. "Seems like you're working twice as hard as those fellas." Her smile faltered. Just how schedules work out. "Tips must make up for it, though, right?" he asked, cutting into his eggs. The pause was short, but telling. "Not really," she said softly, glancing toward the counter. "Especially when we split them. But only certain people actually get them." Then, before he could press further, someone called her away. Derek's fork froze halfway to his mouth. He hadn't come here looking for drama, but that one whispered sentence told him everything he needed to know. For the next hour, he watched. The pattern became unmistakable. Cassie handled 12 tables, Ryan and Jason only 4 each. When customers paid with cards, One of the men would swoop in to process it. When Cassie's customers paid, the same thing happened. She was conveniently excluded from digital transactions. When the rush slowed, Derek motioned for a refill. "Can I ask you something, Cassie?" he said as she poured. "If it's quick," she said carefully. "We're not supposed to linger." "Just curious," he said smoothly. "My daughter's thinking of moving here. I'm seeing what kind of folks she might be working with." That earned a flicker of trust. "I'll bring your check," she said, subtly slipping a new order pad into her apron so she could stay longer without suspicion. When she returned, he leaned closer. "You've been here a while?" 3 years, she said. "Started in high school. Almost done with community college now. 1 semester left for my accounting degree." "Impressive," he said. "But you mentioned tips earlier." Cassie's eyes darted to the kitchen. "We're supposed to pool digital tips and split them," she whispered. "Doug changed the system, so only certain servers get assigned to the digital POS. The rest of us, we get told cash for leaving things out later. It doesn't." "How much have you lost?" "Over 600 this month." Her voice trembled, barely audible. "I've tracked it. Every shift, every receipt." "Why not report it?" Cassie gave a short, bitter laugh. "To who?" "Doug's nephew Ryan handles the reports. Complaints go through him." Derek's jaw tightened. Doug's nephew. Cassie straightened suddenly. The kitchen door swung open. "I have to go. Hope your daughter finds somewhere better to work." Derek left the $20 on the table, knowing it might vanish into the void, and another $20 folded beneath his coffee cup, where only she would find it. As he exited, Ryan laughed near the register. Digital tips are booming today. Outside, the rain had stopped, but Derek's storm was only beginning. He pulled out his phone and dialed a private number. "Mara," he said when the head of internal investigations answered, "drop everything. Meet me in 1 hour. We've got a serious problem at Sunrise number 28. And Mara, total discretion. No one can know I was here." Derek sat in the diner's parking lot long after the rain stopped, the clouds thinning into a pale morning haze. His coffee had gone cold, but his mind burned hot with fury. Theft, exploitation, nepotism at his company. He had built Sunrise Diner Group from 3 roadside cafes into a national chain with 200 locations. His father had taught him that the heart of any business wasn't its logo or menu. It was the people behind the counter. "You take care of them," his father had said, "and they'll take care of the customers." Somewhere along the line, that heart had been betrayed. By 9:15 a.m., Mara Jennings, head of internal audits, was waiting in her car 2 blocks away. Derek slid into her passenger seat, still wearing his Walt disguise. "You're serious about doing this covertly?" she asked, eyebrows raised. "Dead serious. What I saw, and there isn't just bad management, it's corruption." He handed her the folded napkin where he jotted Cassie's name, shift hours, and what she'd said. "Start a quiet inquiry. Track the POS logs, card payments, and who's assigned to which register. Compare that to employee rosters. And the manager? Doug Henderson. Don't alert him yet. I want to see how deep this goes." By noon, Mara was already calling back. "You were right. The POS system at Diner number 28 shows only 2 users, Doug and Ryan, authorized for digital transactions. But company policy mandates all servers rotate through. We've also found transfer anomalies, large tips labeled as miscellaneous, revenue instead of gratuities." Derek exhaled slowly. "How much?" "Preliminary estimate. Over $18,000 misallocated in 6 months. The rain returned as Derek stared out the window, jaw clenched. "Schedule a surprise visit for next week. Bring HR and accounting. No warning. The audit day." 3 days later, Derek traded his flannel for a charcoal suit and returned, not as Walt Simmons, but as Derek Langston, CEO of Sunrise Diner Group. The transformation was almost cinematic. When his black SUV pulled up, the parking lot attendant straightened immediately, whispering his name like an urban legend. Doug Henderson greeted him at the door, nervous grin plastered on his face. "Mr. Langston, what an honor. We weren't expecting you." "Good," Derek said coolly. "I prefer surprises." Inside, the diner froze. Cassie, wiping a counter, looked up, and her eyes widened in disbelief. The retired trucker from last week now wore a tailored jacket and confidence that filled the room. Doug babbled something about daily specials, but Derek cut him off. "Let's talk in your office." "Now!" Once inside, the facade crumbled fast. Doug's office was cluttered. Receipts, old menus, and a half-eaten sandwich. Derek placed a folder on the desk. "These," he said, "are transaction reports from your last 6 months. They show that nearly every digital tip was rerouted through your nephew's register. You then reclassified portions as miscellaneous revenue, stealing not only from your servers, but from the IRS. Doug's face went pale. "Sir, there must be some misunderstanding." Mara stepped forward, dropping another stack of papers. "We also interviewed 3 employees, off record. All confirmed they never received their share of card tips. One even kept detailed notes." She slid a small notebook across the desk. Cassie's handwriting. Doug swallowed hard. "She's lying. Probably trying to—" "Enough." Derek's voice thundered, sharp as glass. "You're suspended effective immediately. HR will coordinate with legal. Your access is revoked, and you'll repay every cent before I'm done with you." As security escorted Doug and Ryan out, the entire diner watched. The tension that had clung to the air like smoke finally broke. Cassie stood frozen near the counter, unsure whether to look relieved or terrified. Derek approached her quietly. "Cassie, can we talk?" She nodded, following him to a booth by the window. "I owe you an apology," he said gently. "You didn't know who I was last week, but you told the truth anyway. That takes courage." "I just didn't want anyone else getting cheated," she murmured. "I thought maybe if someone listened." "Well, someone did." He smiled faintly. "You probably saved this place." She looked at him, uncertain. "What happens now?" "Now," he said, "we rebuild." A week later, the diner felt different, lighter. The neon sign had been fixed, new uniforms ordered, and Employee of the Month board finally updated. With Cassie's photo at the top, Derek returned quietly that Friday, this time without the disguise. He sat at the same booth. Cassie approached with her usual warm smile, though this time her shoulders didn't carry the same invisible weight. "Good morning, Mr. Langston," she said, teasing gently. "Coffee black as night?" He chuckled. "You remembered." How could I forget the undercover boss who almost blew his cover asking about my tip jar? They laughed. It felt good, human, simple. As she poured his coffee, Derek pulled out a small envelope. "This is for you," he said. She hesitated. "Sir, I can't accept." "It's not a gift," he said firmly. "It's restitution. You're missing tips with interest. And one more thing." He handed her a formal letter embossed with the Sunrise logo. Her eyes widened as she read. Corporate Internship Program, Accounting Department, Headquarters. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Wait, this is—" "You've got the brains, the integrity, and the numbers sense we need. You said you were finishing your degree. Finish it with us. Paid." Tears glimmered in her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll take it," he said softly. "We need people like you shaping the next generation of Sunrise." Cassie nodded, speechless. For the first time in years, she looked not just tired, but hopeful. Epilogue. 3 months later, Sunrise Diner number 28 became a model branch for employee reform. Derek launched a new fair tips initiative, mandating transparency for all transactions and an anonymous reporting hotline. Company-wide morale soared. At the quarterly summit, Derek stood before his executives. "We nearly lost our values because we stopped listening," he said. "But sometimes it takes one brave voice to remind us why we started." In the audience, Cassie sat in the second row, her Sunrise internship badge gleaming. When Derek finished speaking, he caught her eye. She smiled and mouthed, "Thank you." He smiled back. "Don't thank me," he whispered to himself. "You saved us." Outside the glass windows, dawn broke over the city, gold light spilling across the horizon. Fitting, Derek thought. After all, every sunrise deserves a second chance.